Welcome to the inaugural Times Higher Education Unbounded Universities event in partnership with Coursera. We're delighted to bring together leading voices from the Asia Pacific region for this exclusive invitation-only half-day event. I'm Phil Beatty, the Chief Knowledge Officer at Times Higher Education, and I have the honor of chairing this prestigious opening plenary panel discussion, examining how the skills gap and digital innovation are changing student pathways throughout the Asia Pacific region. To address the issues, we have a fantastic panel of experts this morning or this afternoon or this evening, wherever you're coming in from. I'm joined by Pachari Lertit, the Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Sciences at Madiol University in Thailand. Pachari is a medical doctor and professor of biochemistry at Madiol and is chair of the the Council of Graduate Studies for Public Autonomous Universities in Thailand. Warm welcome to you, Pachari. We're also joined by Jeff Madjon-Calder, the CEO of Coursera. Jeff joined Coursera as the chief executive in 2017. He has since grown the company to over 68 million learners, 2,800 businesses served by high quality learning content from world top 200 universities and industry educators. A Stanford MBA, he's also worked as a consultant at McKinsey & Company and Cornerstone Research, and he continues to serve as director of Silicon Valley Bank Incorporated. We're also joined by Raja Singham, managing director of Brickfields Asia College in Kuala Lumpur, of course, in Malaysia. He holds several key portfolios as founder of the Make It Right movement, founder of Backflix, the largest free education initiative by the private sector in Malaysia, and as secretary of the ASEAN Business Advisory Council Malaysia. He's the founding member of the Free Food Society and many other social good organizations. Finally, we have Sandeep Sanchetti, the Provost and Vice Chancellor of Mawadi University in India, with a proven track record of building prestigious institutions across Asia. Sandeep has more than 3.5 decades of experience in the field of teaching, research, and academic administration. Sandeep is currently Executive Council member of the Association of Commonwealth Universities. So we are incredibly lucky to have such a accomplished and such a diverse range of experts on the panel. So let's try and get straight into the conversation. So we've had a forced mass movement to online remote digital learning across the region and indeed across the world. I think it's important to explore how much this has changed the landscape permanently. Are we facing a future of fully blended learning, of primarily digital first learning? What are the sort of appropriate new student pathways and the factors now critical for student success? I wondered, Jeff, perhaps if we could come to you first to sort of set the scene a little bit. Coursera was huge and growing before the pandemic, but you've seen obviously explosive growth, 68 million learners now on your platform, an absolutely extraordinary global platform for learning. So what have you learned? What does your data show? What are your experiences show in terms of how the education world is shifting? How are student demands changing in terms of what they want to learn, how they want to learn? And how do universities work with Coursera? Where's the innovation? How do they stay innovative and responsive to student needs? Delighted to hear from your experience, Jeff.
Thank you, Phil, and I really appreciate everybody joining. Phil, I thank you for moderating and our guests. You will offer far more to the audience than I, so I'll make it fairly brief with maybe some global perspectives of the trends that we're seeing, but really the practitioners who are seeing it, face to face and who are implementing certain solutions to the challenges that are arising. I think that's the more important thing. What we've seen at Coursera is pretty straightforward. We had 47 million learners who come directly to Coursera.org at the beginning of 2020. During the pandemic, we grew from 47 by another 30 million to 77 million. We're actually at 82 million learners right now who come directly to Coursera. And so we've definitely seen many individuals going directly to the source of accessible learning. And so clearly, courses in data science and business and technology are in very high demand, and we've seen a lot of growth in our consumer business. but perhaps even more notably has been the response of institutions. So in addition to serving individuals directly, we also serve institutions. We have Coursera for businesses. That was launched about 6 years ago. We saw hundreds of new businesses join Coursera. They're really seeing an acceleration of trends that frankly preceded the pandemic, but now are going into somewhat unknown territory. The trends that preceded the pandemic are basically those trends associated with digital transformation, the world moving to be more digitized, compute moving into the cloud. When you get into the cloud, a lot more AI, the ability to automate processes and automate even jobs. We've seen that the pandemic has really accelerated trends in businesses that have been emerging for quite some time. The World Economic Forum, in their most recent 2020 Future of Job Reports, says that 84% of companies interviewed said that the response to the pandemic that they will have is to accelerate the move towards digital, accelerate the move towards the cloud, accelerate the move towards artificial intelligence. And what they're looking for are employees who have these kinds of skills. So I think there's a big premium in the workplace towards digitization and the skills associated with that. The next type of institution is Coursera for government. So we have been working with governments pre-pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic has created mass levels of unemployment. And many people, there are many articles in the States, I suspect they'll be in other countries as well. They talk about the Great Resignation. They estimate in the United States up to 40% of people will quit their jobs coming out of the pandemic and look for new careers in digital fields, because digital fields often pay better, they often have better benefits, they have better long-term opportunities, and increasingly with remote work, they offer greater flexibility. And I'll just add, for students who are going to be graduating from universities, the ability for remote work to create job opportunities, if you've got the digital skills, I think will be unprecedented. I think companies like Coursera are now hiring all over the world rather than just in their local area. And then the final type of institution is Coursera for campus. This is for academic institutions. This is going to be really the biggest focus. What we see is, of course, emergency teaching moving online during 2020 now leads into a world where I think everybody is seeing either hybrid or online first as probably being the biggest modality. And universities saying, not only do I have to move online, I need to incorporate new types of training and education that make my my students more employable to employers in a more difficult job market. So those are some of the trends that we're seeing. I'll be interested to see how much of these trends maybe get echoed during the panel today.
Thank you very much for setting the scene. Yeah, some absolutely profound changes taking place, particularly in terms of the sort of great reskilling of societies and the need for lifelong learning, which we can really explore a bit more as the conversation progresses. But as Jeff said, he wants to hear from the practitioners. Pachari, perhaps you could reflect a little bit on your experience in terms of that great transition. You know, some of the fields that you work in, obviously you're a medic by background yourself, the idea that it's very hard to teach some of these more practical subjects online. How has your institution, your field transitioned to the a more digital blended future?
Right. Thank you very much, Phil, and thanks, Jeff, as well. So I will mostly say example that happening in Thailand, right? In 2 points. The first point is that it is difficult for the student at first to think of what are they going to face in the future of that job after they graduate, and that is one of the thing that Mahidol University is a little bit concerned. So that's the point that's quite critical for us as well as for the student, that to predict or to study what would be the job look like in probably near future, within 5 years time, or within 2020, another 10 years time, something like that. And the second one is that what is the skill that will be needed at that time, right? I mean, because I'm dealing with the postgrad students, so it would take around 2 years, 3 years for the student from today to finish their graduate and capable of doing the job. So we have to predict what another 2 years, 3 years job would be like. So them so that we can prepare them for that. And that we found out that it is a lot has to be concerned, include several factors, right? In several things, technology, first thing, environment, political, globalization, etc. So it comes to the conclusion, I mean, the experience as the dean here, that we have to broaden, I mean, our student-minded and be prepared to accept all the changes that will be in the future. And the best way is to predict the change and prepare the knowledge for that. And we found out that several things that has emerged when we look at the Coursera courses that we have been using. Not only the knowledge in the course, but there are several skills courses, I mean, that could be prepared and prepare for many dimensions, as I would say, that for the technology skills that needed for the future. Coursera have several courses like data science or whatever, which is very popular for the students in our university to take the course like this. And also interpersonal skill, which will be very much used and very important in the future. You have the several interpersonal skills courses in the Coursera as well. Even some physical, practical points you can find it. And we found no boundary for to see the experience one in the course. And also it is very convenient for my students. Some of my students take several courses, like 10, 20 courses. It is actually more than what we expect, because it is useful. So I think that that is for the student part. And for the lecturer part in the university, I think that this is the time that the lecturer also can see what the other lecturers in the world has referred to, or exchange some knowledge, some experience. I think that that happened in the university. That's for now, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it, that I think we've always been grappling with this idea of how do we prepare students for what's known as the fourth industrial revolution, a world of artificial intelligence, a world where automation, robotics could take a lot of jobs. This idea of how you prepare a student for that future, that seems to have just been accelerated so dramatically, of course, by the forced digital shift, this sort of sense that our digital progress has perhaps moved on in just the last 18 months, a decade, in terms of how we've switched retail to digital, for example. Perhaps, Roger, I could ask you to come in on that. What are the sort of areas where the key sort of student pathways, the sort of secrets to student success as we grapple with this new future, this rapidly changing future? What does it mean for education providers?
I think it's there's a need for us to see how we're going to be relevant. I think there's always been there. How do we, I mean, Darwin very clearly put it, it's not the strongest nor the most intelligent of species that survives, but the one most adaptable to change. I've been pushing this agenda for years, but I couldn't get a lot of my team on board. As a matter of fact, COVID did that job for us. So we moved faster. We've been doing our free education, we've been running it since 2014 as the largest free education platform, but the numbers really started, really shooting up from last April, March, April. So what we've done actually is to try and reinvent that entire physical campus experience through a hybrid campus where people move seamlessly from, physical to online, smart boards, etc. And we introduced this thing called Learn Different with 4 pillars: learn, play, work, and impact. So what made things very different was, and I know it's an event, we tied up with Coursera, for example, and now embedded their content and courses into our curriculum as well. So it gave them access to more qualifications, micro-credentials embedded into their course. We've done the same actually with LinkedIn Learning. And then what was interesting, and we've done that actually even before the pandemic, but the Coursera tie-up was a great tie-up that, boosted our students, gave them more access. So I tell the kids, Before this, you had your one lecturer for a subject and your one tutor would sort of guide you. And now you suddenly have got teachers from 200 over universities. And what was interesting is I reached out to academics who teach on, say, the law program at Oxford, Cambridge, London, and I've got them now teaching from last September, that term, live classes from about 7 to 9 our time. So that then gave, so they would teach a 30-hour, 40-hour curriculum over the year, and from 18 British universities who were delivering it live, as opposed to before they may come down and do a lecture or two during Easter or the Christmas break. So that changed things. So suddenly the students have so much more access to content, and our problem now becomes curating that content. So that was the learn. Then came the other aspect, which is play. Because on the play side, studying and all of this is one part, but we wanted, so we had things like, online games like PS4, Hearthstone, FIFA, online dating, blind date, parties, talent shows, everything done online with about 150 activities organized through what we called BAC Engage. Then the third aspect became work. Now we created a virtual internship platform so they can get jobs across from local and international companies, apprentice program to pull people on board, a job site for graduates because the number of graduates unemployed in the country had really soared with employers not being able to onboard staff. We are currently in Malaysia under a lockdown. So we can't go to work. And with this lockdown, a lot of employers aren't equipped to hire. They don't know how to interview somebody, onboard a staff member. So we created these apprentice programs, and we're running courses and free things for employers so that they are able, and we're working with the government body on this. So there's grad jobs. We've got a portal called Special Jobs for the special needs community. So we work that side of it. And then the last aspect was, the fourth pillar is impact, where we are working with 250 NGOs and trying to get students to understand how to impact the world around them, because that's a very crucial aspect. So the teaching of values as well. And we work with UNHCR, UNICEF, WHO, and a whole bunch of other organizations. So like this week, we're giving out meals in this 2 weeks, 1 million free meals for provisions. And we've got the entire country. We're setting up, because of depression and all of that, we're setting up things like helplines for those who are depressed, going through anxiety, helplines to get people jobs. And we're getting our students involved in these things. So we're taking a very holistic approach, the learn, play, work, impact approach, to make sure that, and how we are doing it is through collaboration with people like Coursera, because everybody's got their strengths. So we work in a very collaborative type approach with multiple institutions, with multiple organizations, because we don't have all the answers. But out there's somebody who does, and we bring everybody together and then offer that solution. And that's given us a chance to really ramp up and be a leading player, not just in the education market, but in all the other aspects, and being a part of a community. And we're teaching that next generation to embrace doing good as well. So I think one of the things is what we've got to look at in the future. I think seriously, curriculums should have the UN SDGs, the 17 UN SDGs built into them, and that we train people to be social good entrepreneurs, and we train them to solve society's problems instead of just thinking whether they can be the next billionaire.
Yeah.
See? So that's a bit different, I suppose.
Times Higher Education, of course, is renowned for its world rankings, and all the universities obviously are competing to do well in this ranking, but we've actually just created an impact ranking based on the SDGs. We want to sort of almost reframe what excellence in higher education really looks like, what excellence is. And I think focusing on universities' great social good, their social impact is really exciting. And certainly seems students and the pandemic have shifted people more towards reasserting that amazing public good that universities and higher education can be. Sandeep, can I ask you to come in there, sort of in terms of how do institutions respond to this rapidly changing agenda? How do you focus in on student success in a really rapidly changing world?
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Jeff, for this opportunity. Very nice to be on the panel of Unbounded Universities. I think the name itself signifies the changes. It probably used to be a very limited kind of an avenue for a student, for us in India. because we also always had a silo-based approach kind of a thing. The specializations were very narrow. I think those things have changed now because of variety of reasons. One obviously is the technology, which we are talking of, which is making it like minus infinite to plus infinite in terms of variety. I think Mr. Raja just now shared that how he's doing learn, play, and everything combined together. It's all because of technology. So those things have started playing a role. We also were fortunate that the COVID pushed us into change of mindset within us, within the government, and everyone who was involved, the recipients also, though we have some challenges, but we are still now open to that. And the last change which has come to us is the form of new education policy or national education policy. All have culminated into one thing at a single point of time, and which is resulting in India making lots of changes. But before that, I would like to give credit to THE and Coursera for something, and that is the THE possibly has taught us, or many of us, I would say, what are the parameters of the academic world or the research world, or now we have, as you have rightly said, the sustainable development goals, the environmental aspects, what we need to care for, what we need to teach, learn, practice, showcase, whatever it is. So those are wonderful things, and the government and all of us are paying heed to that. Same way with the Coursera, that there was hardly anything called open learning. I still remember way back in 2004-5, I started doing something from MIT Open Courseware, started teaching, and I was also in Thailand at that time. I was using, that was a huge resource for me to teach in AIT Bangkok. But I found that later it was not being used, it was being very restrictive. So agencies like Coursera made wonders last year when they opened up their platform to large number of Indian institutions, my own institutions, the current one and the previous one. I would say thousands and thousands of students benefited from their free offer or the experiential offer which was given to all, and even now they continue to do so. But I'm very happy that they are giving us plethora of things which are required in the education space. For example, courses, obviously taught by anyone from anywhere, best of the experts, best of the institutions, but now the project and virtual labs, the placement related activities are there. You can author the courses. I'm sure you are doing a lot of things on evaluations, and they'll also become big, Jeff, in my opinion. And as a result of this, many institutions in India are partnering them or the likes. And we at Marwari University have partnered with them recently only. And that is because we know that how we increase the bandwidth of a student, which is important in this particular world. I would like to say one or two more things about what all of us collectively are doing in India. My remarks may be limited to India. In India, UGC is the prime driver when it comes to the general education. And there, they have kind of loosened the strings in some sense, that they were allowing the MOOC courses earlier. Those are also limited to the so-called Indian MOOC in terms of where, delivery, and there are certain protocols to be followed. But now it is open to others. Similarly, they have constituted a committee of blended teaching learning. Fortunately, I was a part of that, and we submitted a report in February. We have listed a lot of things, good things. Coursera is one of them, which is listed in that. The report has gone public. It is now a base document or a reference document, and government has increased the limit to a much higher range, though it is yet to be finally given as an order, but still it gives a mandate that we are changing a lot, we are opening a lot. Now, this blended business possibly is generally talking about the mode. Blended is also talking, if you take an alternative word synonym, maybe hybrid. But I like the word flexible. Flexible because it's flexible in time, flexible in language, flexible in cost, flexible in mode also. And therefore, my personal preference is flex, but I've seen large number of versions. People also call it hybrid flex, iFlex also. So there are many things, but they are all more or less same. And one reason for all that which has happened is India is anyway powerhouse when it comes to IT-based technologies, but we never adopted it in our education system. Fortunately, we were to do because of the COVID. And technology once sets in our life, it is not very easy to drive it away. You see anything in our life from mobile to automobile, it remains there. And so is the case in the education, that it started moving into education last year, and now it has become permanent, and that is why the blending is easily possible. The second thing India is looking from technology is the scalability. India is currently GER of 27%, aspiring to increase it to 50% in next 15 years, whereas in 75 years, we have done only 27%. Next 15 years, another doubling it. And technology will be the prime mover for that. Technology will give the scalability, the cloud technologies or any other technologies for that matter, or the Coursera support or whatever, will be the prime mover for that. And finally, we are facing the biggest hue and cry in Indian system, higher education, was mostly about examinations. When would exam happen? When would result come? Are you normalizing it? Are you passing them? Codes are interfering. I think this technology, which we are talking about, which is now creeping into our lives in education also, is going to do wonders for that. I shouldn't be wasting my time as an invigilator looking into eyes of some few people and then charging them with something right or wrong. No, technology can do it. Technology, in my opinion, is a servant which can do the odd jobs which would like the technology to do. And one big change, for example, as a fundamental point only, I'm saying in exam, we generally ask people, have you written your examination? All the time when we meet, have you written your examination? I think those modes will change again. And now the new mode will be, have you spoken in the examination? You can give spoken examinations. I can go walk in, record my audio. It will be in my voice. Signatures are tested. Everything is tested. And I can do it pretty fast also. So what I'm saying is technology has a beauty which makes the entire education delivery unbounded. In minus infinite to plus infinite, and India is fully experimenting with that, and some of us are very keenly driving it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think a lot of the experience from India is relevant to ASEAN in terms of, you know, the mass expansion of access to higher education, the need to, you know, educate a huge youth population, the need to match education with skills. So we'll turn more to the ASEAN region. I was stunned to read a figure in Times Higher Education magazine, actually, that 1 in 11 of the world's 15 to 24-year-olds are now in an ASEAN nation. It's an extraordinary opportunity, but a huge, huge challenge. And I presume one of the big challenges is job-specific skills. And I know we've got the need to prepare people for a very uncertain jobs market, but also a really important economic need and across the Southeast Asia in particular, to give people the skills they need for employment. I wondered, Jeff, if I could go back to you and ask about how Coursera is sort of bridging the gap between the broader education that perhaps universities are more uniquely placed to deliver, sort of a liberal arts sort of research-led education, how you can collaborate to really embed graduate employment skills. You know, you've obviously got this extraordinary Coursera for Business platform, as well as Coursera for Campus. So how are you working towards the sort of employability agenda?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that this comes down to, and Pachari just talked a lot about. One of the challenges, and Roger, I think you did too, with respect to curation, is trying to figure out where are things going, what skills will be needed, how do you curate the content, how do you stay on top of it? One of the things that we have really tried to do, and this is one of the advantages of a platform business model, is that we're not solving all the problems at Coursera. What we are trying to do is to enable hundreds of universities and other institutions to figure out what kinds of courses are going to be needed, what kinds of skills will need to be delivered, and create those courses that meet needs around the world. What we have seen, and the way that we typically think of it, in the jobs world. Now, in the academic world, there's questions of credits and distribution requirements and what sort of requirements are needed curricularly to get the degree. But in terms of employability, a big part of it is to start with, where will the future jobs be? And Microsoft just did a recent study. They suggested that the digital capacity, this is jobs using digital skills, will grow from about 41 million global digital jobs by another 149 million in just the next 5 years. And this is going to be in computer software, data science, cloud computing, privacy, cyber, etc., graphic design, website, even the way people do sales. But the question really is, where will the jobs be? And then what skills will be needed to do those jobs? And Dr. Sanchetti, I think you talked about these hands-on projects. It's not just the theory, but the tools. There are digital tools now being used in almost every job. So how do you learn the theory, which is often more durable, but also how do you learn the tools to do these different jobs. What we've been really working on at Coursera is trying to understand from our Coursera for Business platform, where are the jobs, what kinds of skills are needed to do those jobs by virtue of measuring performance in the courses by people who have a given job role. Say that's a product designer, that might be a software engineer, that might be a project manager. We are measuring the skill of people in the jobs to understand what skills do they have and what proficiency do they have. And now we're bringing, we call them skill sets. We're bringing skill sets to our academic institution partners to say, if your students want to get a job in this region, in this job category, here's the benchmark of skills that they're going to be needed. And because the world's changing quickly, those skills are going to be changing quickly, and the proficiencies expected will be changing quickly. But linking the business to the academic institution is a major part of what we're trying to do, both for our business customers as well as for our partners in academic institutions. So I think that link is important. I really think it has a lot to do with the job roles in demand and the skills to do those jobs.
Thanks, Jeff. Roger, I really liked what you said earlier around this idea that, you know, you don't have all the answers, so it's a really important opportunity to collaborate, to share, to bring all the lots of different parties together to collectively solve some of these challenges. I wondered perhaps if Patchari and Sandeep could talk about the university role here in terms of how much you need to connect with industry, with business, and is that shifting? Is your approach to collaboration with the so-called real world, the world of industry and business, is that changing? Is that evolving as a result of some of the changes we're seeing through the pandemic? Sandeep. Oh, sorry, I think we can't hear you. I don't know if you're on mute, Sandeep.
Yeah, do you want me to answer that, or Mr. Raja? Yeah.
Let's go for Sandeep and Patchari, because I'd like to hear the institutional perspective, and then Raja, we'll come back to you.
Okay, when it comes to our Industry Connect, models are far too many, and now they are becoming more serious and more, you can say, target oriented. I'll just give you an example to prove that. In most cases, we would send our students to industry for internships and projects and research or whatever development, whatever it may be. And they will do a wonderful job. Industry will be happy, and industry will want more of it. But the point is, the institutions were not very getting too much of benefit out of that, because the students will leave, they'll be absorbed in another industry, and the new batch of students will make a fresh connect. And once again, the students doesn't gain, institutions didn't gain much. Now what we are trying to do is we have started schemes like faculty industry immersion program. In a year, around 10% of the faculty, 5 to 10% of the faculty will spend 1 to 2 weeks in industry without any expectation from the industry, without any charge or cost to the industry. They will learn from industry what problems, what tools, what other avenues they have, bring that value and deliver it in the classroom, have the good connect, give the projects which are much more related and which are much more useful to industry. And that's why they will be able to build the relationship or bridges. So these kind of models are now emanating. That is number one. Number two, we are giving enough time to our students to go to industry and experiment with whatever we want to do. And number three, industry itself is getting matured. They are now seeing the value of innovation. And innovation comes from uncluttered mind, and uncluttered minds are not with most of the people like us, but the young ones who are probably bubbling with energy. So they are also welcoming them. Most of the technological companies, particularly IT-related companies, look forward to having those young people like that. So all in all, the ecosystem for this is improving. We are developing a lot of research-led or research-driven education. So in all, you can say industry aspect is also on a upward move as far as India is concerned. But then on top of that, if I just give a comment on the skills, I would like to say that we used to have a separate track in India for skills. We coined a degree called BWalk, which never became popular, though some good institutions came to do that particular job. Now we have a scheme called ABC, Academic Bank of Credit, which probably is a, you can say, a version of something like that happening in some other parts of the world, but not exactly the same. But the timing is right. This Academic Bank of Credit is what will make the skills or the vocational or any kind of learning or MOOC-based learning or industry-based learning amalgamate and give me a degree if I wish. Otherwise, it will give me a certificate, or otherwise it will give me credit, and it will still make me employable or maybe knowledgeable, at least in whatever domain I want. So these changes are making industry and us and skills, everything gel very well. That's my view.
Thank you. We're just coming to the last 10 minutes of the session, and I've seen some good audience questions coming in. So I'm going to throw out some audience questions. I think, Patri, I might ask you to answer the first one just because you were due to come in anyway. Chandrika from the University of Colombo has said, while appreciating the highly innovative, user-friendly Coursera learning resources, how best do you recommend us to bridge the gap in maintaining the human touch to higher learning? That how important is the physical, personal, face-to-face connectivity within this digital space, and how do we retain that as we do make the very best of these extraordinary digital opportunities? Patrick, could I ask you to come in on that, and anyone else?
Right.
To answer
okay.
That?
I would respond on that, and also respond on the previous question that Prof. Sadiq has already mentioned. This is very important because even we have any high technology or anything like that, but interpersonal skills still very important. And in some aspect, you cannot replace with anything. So that what I think probably make you feel more comfortable that at least human touch is still very important. I think from my experience with this in Coursera, because we need we say that we complement each other with what experience that I use for the courses from the human being. There's you can attend some course, you can get some idea, and then this is the role of the university to add some more practical. So it is very important to work in complementary. I think this is a key for what you need, because the knowledge can be many, but you still need practice, and that is what we can provide locally. That's important. And also, I go back. Can I just go back a little few for the previous response with the university doing with the industrial? I mean, how can we link? So I would like to say example in Mahidol University, because I'm looking after the postgrad school in the university. We have, and then we will do like this, but initiate. We send our postgrad students into the factory. We have collaboration, and then the research question for their thesis come from the question of the industrial knowledge itself. See, so the question, the research question for thesis one part come from the one who need the answer, and the one part is come from the one who know the academic way to solve the problem. See, and that is another complementary. I think that we cannot work alone in this world right now. And apart from that, I was told, for an example, we have our science technology program collaborate with the compact grade, say something like factory compact grade. See, so we take the questions in, and when I talk to the factory owners, something like that, they say that please give them the student more higher aspect in some technology that I mean that if they have an applicant for work for the job, that they are good in Excel, Word, something like that. They just very plain. But if you have certificate in something like database management, data science, something like that, and he said that he will grab that person immediately. So the way they did is, and we discussed some of the student that the factory take from our student. Give the student to learn some list in I have to say it again, Jeff, that in some Coursera, and then we are trying to kind of make a credit as an elective course. You see, the elective course from Coursera picked up by the factory itself that it is needed for them, and then we do it, convert it as a credit in the university, part of it. So actually win-win situation. So that's what I would share. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got about 5 minutes left. There's a few more questions. Roger, I just wanted to ask you to come in quickly on that issue around the human touch. You know, you've got an amazing platform of free resources. What's the importance of that human aspect, and how do we look after that?
I think that's where what we've tried to do is to replicate it, but we can't replicate everything. We've got our swimming pool, our gyms, our football fields, volleyball, and all of that, and kids are waiting to come back and use all of that. But in the meantime, we have to make do and do the best we can to replicate. And the Gen Zs are very different. They're most of the time on their device anyway. Even if another person was about 10 feet away, they would still be on Instagram or something, communicating and messaging each other. So it's a very different, I mean, when we talk about the human touch, it's a different generation. We would have really suffered, but you can't beat the human touch. And that's why we're still looking at this, hybrid type approach of face-to-face and that. And I think universities would like it that way as well. We need to all get together and work things. So we've grown a lot in the last year. With a lot more access, a lot more content, a lot more universities, a lot more partnerships, and a lot more to learn than before. But we still need some of that old stuff that's been there for years, and to marry these two things. I would really not want 100% online as a permanent feature. It's bringing the best of both worlds together. Now, one of the key things that was raised a lot of times today was fast track, skill acquisition, what skills, and they keep changing. Everybody's got a list of the 20 most future skills you need to have. So one of the things I'm saying that needs to be pushed is fast track skill acquisition. That itself is a skill set. And there's tons of stuff like, there are books on like how to pick up a skill in 20 hours. You can go Google it. So what we're trying to teach the students is fast track skill acquisition so that you can pick up new skills more quickly. There are a few tricks. I have no time today in 3 minutes to go through that, but go look at that. And then the importance of realizing it's not like before, there's convergence. So things like bioengineering requires a person to understand medical knowledge, digital knowledge, 3D printing. When would these three fields before be ever thought of in one career? So people need to be open. Like our law students now pick up legal tech, entrepreneurship, startup, all of these different things. So there's so much to learn. And I also try to encourage young people, try to become a polymath. Being a polymath is great. Like Leonardo da Vinci is probably the most famous polymath that ever lived. But if you're a polymath, you achieve so much more in life. So go look at doing those things. But the big problem now is actually in APAC is this. We've got the biggest workforce, probably in the world, the young workforce about to enter, huge potential. But I also think that sometimes we need to slow down. I think everybody's getting too excited about pushing forward, fourth industrial revolution, do this, do that. But we have tons of people in Asia who are not even past the second industrial revolution. So we got to go out there and help these people, the farmers, the fishermen, all these guys, to show them newer techniques, better ways to do things by industry. One of the things I find is a lot of these people are going to be displaced. They're going to lose jobs. Automation is going to kill a lot of jobs. And there's going to be this transition before they get employed. And I see this because I'm sitting on ASEAN back and we're looking at what's happening and trying to close the skills gap with a population of 600 over million people. And everybody's so excited about technology. Let's move, let's do this, fourth industrial, and they're forgetting a lot of people don't have access. Geographical access problem, digital access is a problem, language is a problem. They don't speak English. So I think if we're really looking at solutions, we have to go and ask these tough, difficult questions and solve those while we are bringing one set of people up on this side. So I love the work everyone is doing, from Times to Coursera to everyone on this panel, but we can't leave an entire section, large section of people behind. And we have to find ways to reach out to these guys because that's key thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's a really powerful note. And actually it leads into the two questions. Unfortunately, Jeff, these are going to be rapid fire. We have an extremely limited window, but there's two questions for you that are very relevant to Roger's points, actually. So Tian Belwati has asked, will Coursera work with local industry to assess the needs and partner with local universities to create a course specifically to bridge the gap, the skills gap in a local language? And then related to that, the Ray Veyer of Mapua University has said, what is Coursera's concept of providing for lifelong learning for individual learners outside of any institutional arrangements with businesses? So sorry, two big, broad questions, and you have less than a minute to answer them, but have a go.
No problem.
If you will.
I'll answer the second question first. We started as a company by two professors from Stanford offering education directly to individuals. We'll continue to do that, but we have tens of millions of people that come right to Coursera.org without any institutional intervention, and we're going to continue to do that. On the second question about how do we create bridges, regional bridges between employers and academic institutions, we are certainly doing that region by region. We work with over 60 industry partners. These are companies that author courses and projects in local languages, and they work often with the academic institutions, and then they pair up with businesses. And I'll sort of wrap on a point that Raja made. In digital transformation, no company has all the answers. No company has all the solutions. And it's such a moving target. The one thing everyone, I hope, takes away is the world is accelerating. That will not stop. It will only increase. The only way to keep up with it is by innovation. The way to innovate is to collaborate, to work with others, to learn from each other, to share what's working, and then to share solutions. And so a lot of what we want to be to academic institutions as an innovation partner. I want to thank the 3 innovation partners that we have here for sharing the way you've approached this problem. We're in the very early innings. We have many years and more challenges to figure out, but I think together, if we can, understand and solve these problems together, it will give us the best chance. And so I really do appreciate all the speakers and the audience for joining us today.
Brilliant. Well, that's a perfect end. And I think that spirit of collaboration is absolutely vital to end on as well, because I think Times Higher Education has a whole range of collaborations with Coursera to bring these conversations around the region. We do want to keep these conversations going. The big lesson here is that we should be talking about this for hours and hours, and we've got great program, great content coming up. But as an introduction to the rest of today, as a spark for some great conversations we'll continue to have throughout this meeting and well beyond, I'd like to thank you all for participating and sharing your thoughts. It's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you very much indeed, all of you.